Thanks a lot, guys, and thanks for allowing us the opportunity to talk. This morning was very illuminating, and I hope we can follow that on. The world keeps changing. I will try and take you through the process that we kind of go through, which would be from the initial inquiry stage to making our mind up how we're going to build and the choice of methods. There are various methods out there. Those methods are getting wider to try and stay abreast of those and keep up with the ever-changing world is an issue in itself. Then you have the detailed design stage, and then you have the site stage, and then you have completion. So, when we get initial inquiry in our office, if we have designed the job, that's one issue, or it may be a site that's bought by a client with planning permission. We're being asked to take it to site. The issue then is, what way do we build it? They're saying they'll have their ideas. They'll be asking us what we think of it, what's the fastest, what's the quickest, what's the most efficient. The issues there are lead-in times, availability of material. The lead-in time on timber frame is maybe 16 weeks. They have to pay 50% up front as a deposit. If they go with traditional, the issue is getting labour, getting block layers. Or if they go with ICF, they're more in control. But it still is a process that I think, and we'll have heard this morning from Mike, that I think we're still maybe learning the finer details of, So I'll talk you briefly through some of the methods that they are. You will know all of these anyway. Sorry, I'll go back one. We have traditional build. We're still doing a little bit of traditional build, maybe 10%. You then have timber frame. It's fast, but there are possible lead-in times, and a lot of the main contractors in the country have mopped up a lot of the supply at the moment. And then there are variations which we have to try and keep our head around in the variations and the idiosyncrasies from different suppliers. Another method is the EWI, which is that's there's an EWI system. That's built using EWI external wall insulation and a hollow block internal wall. We found that to be quite fast and efficient, and it worked well. You can also we haven't done it, but you can also use the Spanish clay bricks. Just while we're looking at that slide, if you just note on the timber frame there, there's if you note the bags there, the bags are vertical. There's no fire bags or cavity barriers around or under the windows. And which is and I'll refer to that later. I'll show you a variation. And then ICF. This is an ICF job we've just completed there. Housing and duplexes. We used concrete floors and ICF, and that had its idiosyncrasies as well, and its details to be sorted. So I'll come back to that as well. You have light gauge steel, possible long lead-in time. We haven't built with light gauge steel, but we did spend a lot of time on a block of apartments. We spent 3 to 4 months going through the details with the supplier, their engineers, our own engineers, ourselves, and the contractor. And it was an arduous task, and we got it. We did get to a final set of completion of drawings that we felt we could submit, but the job has been put on hold. The client is looking at maybe going for a denser build, Yes, so LGS, but I do know that the contractor was very fond of it from the point of view that they had found it on a previous job very fast on site. So I'm just highlighting the difference between fast on site and the lead-in time. We'll go on again. If we move on to apartments, the top frame, if you can't maybe see it there, that's the inside of a concrete frame, flat slab construction with concrete columns. SFS construction then for the inner leaf of the external wall and internal walls. And the yellow on the left-hand side there is a bathroom pod And we found them to work really well. And the SFS worked really well, but we spent a lot of time working out the details. But when we went to site, guys were just doing their own thing, and telling us this is the way we've been doing it. But the details were worked out with their supplier and the contractor. But when we got to site, the guys were doing their own thing, so there was a bit of an argy-bargy about that. Then as I said, we've done a scheme on LGS. We haven't built it. We have used masonry and precast floors. We're about to look at poured concrete walls. This is rather unusual, but given the supply situation with block layers and everything else, we've a client that's about to build 3-stroke 4-story houses in Rathfarnham, and he's going to do an inner leaf of poured concrete and EWI on the outer leaf. So that'll be interesting. I think that'll work well, but we'll see what happens. We're also about to start to do a twin wall construction job in apartments and housing. Now, the interesting bit there is the housing. I think Mike or somebody referred earlier on that stuff should really be designed to the selected build method at planning stage, and that's not going to happen, and that doesn't happen. We would tend to draw external walls now at the planning stage at 400 and draw party walls at 300. But if the site is bought, we could very well have a situation where the gable walls are drawn, or the gables are drawn up at 300 wall and the party wall is a 215. A timber frame or an ICF wall is going to be bigger than that. If you have a run of semis beside each other, your gable walls may lead to creep on the site, or if you have a long run of terraces and you're using the party wall will grow in either timber frame or ICF, and so you can get creep. That we've had up to about 1 metre in creep, and finding that space sometimes can be difficult on a site. We're also about to do a job. We haven't done this before, but I gathered it's been used and just approved elsewhere with 3-story timber frame duplexes. And as part of an apartment scheme where we're using SFS, we're going to look at EWI on the rendered wall positions as well. And then the other methods that are out there that we haven't used are cross-laminated timber. So what's out there, lads, these days is not exhaustive. People are looking at various different things. They're mixing it. So from our point of view, getting our head around that, making sure we understand it, and then trying to figure out how we're going to build it becomes an issue. And it takes time. But once we do decide on the methodology, if it's being proposed by a builder, if we drill into it, then what we're offered in terms of certification can sometimes be very lacking, and that'll affect what we do as well. It may change. And the big issue for us is the system, or whatever we're going to do, certified. Some of the stuff that's sent into us is certainly not up to speed, and that's a battle, and can be a battle if a contractor wants to do a particular thing. Also, what happens is when we do get to site, and I'm digressing a little bit, the main contractors, in fairness to them, have got their head around all of this, and we are collecting CE certs and they are collecting GOPs. But we've had, trade brochures sent into us for approval, this all takes time. At that point, if the system is, and it helps us from an Assigned Certifier point of view, if we've already used, and I'm using the Assigned Certifier, we do the Design Certifier as well, so it helps if we've already used the system, and if we know the system, it helps us in time-wise, it helps us in standardization, and it can have cost benefits to ourselves, And then, I've referred here to the certification, and drilling through a certificate can be an issue, and the code of practice does put the responsibility, or a lot of the responsibility, for the materials on the main contractor. but that is being passed through, because everything's been passed on to the Assigned Certifier. And we have, there's just a note in the bottom there, we have been offered fraudulent certificates. So that's one to watch as well. It can happen. And once we get past that stage where we have a system we're going to use, we need to get into the detailed design. And, you know, there are idiosyncrasies with the different methods. If you take timber, you can have timber suppliers who, instead of using open web joists, offer solid joists. Sorry, Lance, sorry. I've lost the wrong side of the way. Okay, now we'll keep going, yeah. There's also, you can have web joists, and what do you do if you have a 2-story or 3-story? So the fire situation has to be considered, it's different. Some of the suppliers supply bags under the windows for fire certificate, for cavity barriers. Some of them don't. And to get your head around and make sure you know what you're doing, you're dealing with the right system, you need to be awake and on the ball. But yes, it can vary. And then we haven't done a lot of, as I would call, full true modular system. I mean, 2D timber frame and the ICF, yes, we've done a lot. We haven't done any pure modulars as in volumetric to date. And the details around ICF, I'll come back, I'll show some more details in a minute with ICF. These are twin wall details on the right hand side there. We're just getting our head around. The top slide is a solid floor, or solid joists in a timber floor situation. I'll just move on. Further consideration then is your foundations, and you know, we can have various different foundation methods. I'm thinking speed here in terms of delivering housing. Traditionally on the East Coast, we would use strip foundations or piling. We have used raft, and we found it to be very quick. This one here in the top, that's on to a scheme of houses in City West, which was done with a hollow block, and we actually got passive rated homes, but we didn't, and the contractor didn't realize at the time that this can be very fast, because you're only dealing with one trade, as in the ground worker, to get you up to DPC or slab and DPC level. We've used it. That's with EWI. We've used raft. This is here. Oh, sorry, back lens here. Here with ICF, and we've recently with a contractor from the west, from Limerick, who would not pour strip foundations. We wanted to use strip foundations, used a raft and timber frame, and again, it's very fast, and I think I'm converted. And there's a further slide there, and the slide on the left there is just insulated precast slabs from Crea Concrete in the north. So the top slide there with the raft, these are EWI and hollow block. These were passive houses in City West. That's a few years ago now, but again, we found them very efficient and fast. This is EWI with raft foundation, the core raft foundation, insulated core. Sorry, I should have said these had the insulated core from Core, insulated raft from Core in Cork. This is the same, and these are just ordinary concrete raft foundations, but again, very fast. And then when we get to site, then you can find, and I've shown some EWI and ICF here. You can find there are good contractors out there. There are guys who are trying to do it right, and there's some that are less experienced. And even in the ICF, I mean, we have found there are very good contractors, and there are some who as Mike was referring to earlier on, think it's Lego. It's far from Lego, and the details can be very intricate. But we found one guy here building a terrace of of duplexes, and they weren't bringing up the party wall at the same time. Now, I might have been wrong, but we weren't enamored with this. Another thing we're finding is the fire stop that was referred to earlier can be difficult to find. That's up at wall joist or at floor joist level, and it can be difficult to identify if you're carrying out inspections, and if you're not there when you actually see them going in. And this is the services encased, as referred to earlier on. The subtlety here is the fire stop is slightly higher than the bottom of the ledger there. It's cast into the concrete at the back, and this allows the services to come up and be drilled through the bottom of the ledger there and fire stopped. And this here is EWI, and we have had an instance, and this refers back to a conversation earlier on where we were talking about the lifespan. We have had an instance where the contractor, without telling anybody, changed his system to a 30-year system, which is what's used for a retrofit. It looked and felt exactly the same, but wasn't. And we had a right royal battle to solve the problem, get it agreed, use a 60-year certified system. But back to the lifespan, out of that, it's clear, or it's not clear, but the code does talk about EWI, a bit like Windows, being a maintainable item, which was referred to as, I think, Mike referred to earlier on, about having to inspect your system yearly. So they are classed as maintainable, and they do need maintenance, and as such, they're classed as a 40-year lifespan. Okay, sorry, lads. So if I flip on, sorry. So yeah, so workmanship is an issue, or can be an issue, and you do need, and this is right across the industry, it's not just in ICF. You do need people who know what they're doing. You do need trained tradespeople. You do need trained operatives. And there was previously an intention to have a building contractor register. I don't believe that's ever happened, but I do think we have to ensure that we have trained people on site, because there certainly is, in some instances, an impression that ICF is a bit like Lego, and we have had issues. You need a good contractor who knows what he's doing with ICF, or it can go wrong. Another example, this is just an anecdotal story. Block of apartments, we were asked by a roofing contractor and the main contractor to look at a system for the roof cladding there, which was insulated. We were happy enough with ourselves, but we went through an arduous 3-month process with the insurers, Home Bond, and these guys are very good. We would defer to Home Bond for advice sometimes. They're very good technically, the lads in there, and all agreed, everything hunky-dory eventually, and we went out to site. The operatives on the site hadn't got a breeze what they were meant to be doing. The information hadn't been relayed to them. They couldn't speak English. It was a disaster. We had to take nearly a full block down. Okay, so I'll keep going. So then this is ICF here. We've shown some details, and they're certified, their systems. It was referred to earlier on by Kevin that some of the details are lacking, and we found that. The party wall in the attic was referred to. If you look at the NSAI certs, one of the products out there does have their cert has been renewed in the last year, and they've taken the plasterboard in the attic space out, whereas there's another supplier that we were actually using, and their cert hasn't been updated, and they're still showing plasterboard in the attic space. So the compromise from our point of view is we rendered the wall. Now, the reason we rendered the wall at attic level was if you build a party wall, you can't put plasterboard up at a roof level and expect it to withstand the weather. So we rendered the wall at high level, and because your attic or your roof truss is going to hinder you anyway, so you wouldn't have been able to put the plasterboard in. U values I've referred to there. Some of the systems are very good, and I would actually be a fan of ICF, but there are systems out there where their basic block that they will supply you is only doesn't meet the elemental U value required in the regs. You have to look at a whole house value, or else you have to insulate it with a board on the inside. So you know and also the lack of ACDs leads to a requirement for thermal modelling for FRSI calculations to avoid a condensation risk. And then we found we had to do a lot of work on the detailing for weathering, for cappings, for balconies, for abutments, for lead flashings. You know, the details that are in the certs refer to fairly basic construction, but I mean, if you have a balcony or you have a lean-to roof as we have here, how do you flash that with lead flashing? How do you protect it at the balcony level and ensure that what you're putting in is robust enough to survive and last the required lifespan? Let's keep going, just a few shots here then. These are more shots here. Oh yeah, sorry, back. So that's just the stairs into, on the left slide there is just the stairs into a duplex unit. The middle slide there is showing, I don't know if you can see, but the fire stop is there, cast in. Here it's here, cast in as well, but it can be difficult to find. This is a shot just showing some of the servicing. I don't know if you can see there, but the wall hasn't been cast, and what happens here is when they, either just before or just after they cast the wall, they may have to adjust their plumbing to make sure that everything's straight. This slide here is something I wouldn't recommend we do, or anybody does. We took up the rising walls in 215 blockwork, and then the guys came afterwards to put their ICF on top. The block layers wouldn't have been working to as fine a tolerance as what the guys need for their tracks, and that led to problems in getting it right. And this is just a view here of the wall, and the fire stop is in there again. Okay, this is the finished product. We've just finished a job with ICF duplexes and housing, and one of the idiosyncrasies with ICF, and is a lot, most of schemes that we'll be drawing will be drawn to imperial. Designers won't be taken into consideration the width of doors, the width of windows, or anything. But to avoid wastage, and there can be a lot of wastage in the ICF, you will have to go back, and the working drawings will have to be done to metric measurements, you know, because the ICF block comes at 1200 long, 400 high. So you'll have to try and get your fenestration, your doors and everything to work to those openings. So all those openings are metric in size. But then you have an issue. Well, we brick slips on the outside. The brick slips are imperial, and we have to try and match that. It's not really a building control issue, but it's an aesthetic issue in terms of joints and where joints end up to the side of windows and that sort of stuff. So there are idiosyncrasies in all these systems to be aware of and work with. But they worked out fine, and I can tell you, as they're selling very expensively. So then we come to completion stage, and we do all our completions, and we get our CCC, and we're going. Everybody's happy how they can now sell houses, and then we get an email in from the third-party insurers who may have another concern about something else. This hasn't been planned for at all. Now this is relatively simple. They're just asking us for a note there to confirm that the balconies have been designed and constructed to Part C and D of the regs. But we have had issues where home bond, when they get involved, they come back at a late time with their own particular concerns and queries. And we're trying to get the thing built. We're trying to get it built properly. We're also trying to limit our exposure from the point of view of our PI insurers, and that's a balancing act. Our own views then in terms of what's efficient build methodology for housing. Timber frame is very fast, can have lead-in times. As we found recently with raft, it's even faster. And ICF with a raft is fast as well. I've spoken with one of our contractors in the last week. Their view is that they will stick with ICF going forward for the foreseeable future anyway, because they can control it. They can control the supply, and they can control the build as such. With apartments, as I've said earlier, we use concrete frame and SFS. That's very efficient. ICF and precast concrete, LGS, long lead in time. Actually, the concrete frame and the SFS, there's a bit of lead in time and getting the details right there as well. We're about to do twin wall construction. I'm interested to see how that goes. Not so much in the apartments. I know it works in apartments, but the particular contractor, the developer is actually a twin wall manufacturer himself, and he wants to use it in the housing. So we want to see how that works out. Duplexes, we would be the view that masonry and timber frame is fairly standard and reasonably quick. Masonry with a precast slab at the first floor level. ICF and concrete floors works as well. And we're actually looking at and about to do a 3-story timber frame. We haven't done LGS. So the ICF process, or the Assigned Certifier process, lads, the choice of material or the choice of method is probably one of the main issues that we need to get our head around with our contractor, and the various issues, be that lead in time, costs, or what they're used to. They may have a preference. When we have that done, and we know then we can get the proper certification for the systems, we need to sit down then and do a proper detailed design, and then we go to site. And with all the best will in the world, and aspirations from suppliers and from contractors, I think we do need some. You need experienced people, or else you need trained people. And I think the construction industry does need maybe an injection from government in terms of training. We obtain our CCC, and as I've alluded to, you can get a third-party insurer coming back, and we're trying to limit our PI insurance cover, our exposure to our PI insurance as we go. We're trying to do a good job. We're trying to do it properly, but we're also trying to deliver, but we're trying to limit the exposure as well. So that's the life of an assigned certifier, guys, in a whistle-stop tour.